Hello, I'm Michael Krigsman, and welcome to another episode of CXO-Talk. I'm here with my co-host, Vala Afshar. Vala, how you doing?
Michael, good seeing you.
It's good to see you again. And our guest today is Joanna Young, who is the CIO of the University of New Hampshire. Joanna, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
And we're delighted that you could join us. UNH, the University of New Hampshire, is quite a huge research institution, isn't it?
It is. We are a land, sea, and space grant institution, the largest institution in New Hampshire.
And how many students do you have?
We have about 15,000 students between our undergraduate and our graduate and doctoral students, and at our 3 campuses.
So you're the CIO, and I always wonder what exactly a CIO does. Seems like a silly question, but really, what's the scope of your responsibility at the school?
Well, the scope of the responsibility, there are some things that one might imagine, such as being in charge of the infrastructure, the network, the data center, things of that nature. But really the CIO role is much more integrated with the business than it has ever been before. And so really the CIO role is, in many ways, it's that blend of technology and business officer and helping to drive the results of the organization.
So to what extent are you involved, if you were to divide up your role in terms of looking over the kind of traditional CIO activities, infrastructure and so forth, as you said, versus working closely with the business side, how would you divide that?
Oh, I'd say it's about 75% working with the business, working with my colleagues in the academic, administrative, and student areas, as well as the customers, the students themselves, and about 25% attending to, if you will, the nuts and bolts of IT.
Has that changed over time? Has that proportion changed?
Absolutely. I think over the past, call it decade or so, or maybe even a bit longer, say since the late 90s, I think that's changed significantly. I think the CIO role has, how I reference it as a CIO plus role, is that if you're just focused on the pure play IT, you're probably not contributing as much as you could or should be. You really need to have a deep understanding of the business and how technology can enable the results.
So pure play IT, is it fair to say that pure play IT is dead?
I wouldn't say that it's dead. I mean, I think table stakes is that, the network has to be up and running, the data center's got to be there, the reliability, the availability, the resiliency, you've got to be delivering on time. That's all got to be there, Michael, is table stakes, so I wouldn't say that it's dead, but because there is such a greater degree of automation and what with cloud and software as a service and the whole 9 yards, it used to take a tremendous amount of energy from the CIO to make sure that that all worked. I think that we've been able to shift our energy to being much better and stronger partners with the business than we have heretofore.
Yeah, Joanna, you're a social CIO. You're active on social networks. You frequently write blogs. You recently wrote blogs titled "Don't Let Process Kill Time to Market."
Right.
You wrote blog posts about plus is the new normal. Mm-hmm. And in these blogs, there's a theme, and you talk about the business needs and the need for IT and the CIO to ensure you have quick decision-making, quick implementation, and response to business needs. And I love the CIO plus term that you coined. And you have chief information officer responsibilities, but you also have financial responsibilities, and you're engaged with the community. Talk a little bit more about this CIO plus and how you, as the CIO, bring the biggest value to the largest higher ed institution in New Hampshire.
Yeah, so the CIO plus concept is all about the CIO contributing more and what he or she needs to do in order to do that. And there's a few things I would say. First of all, really important to understand how your organization makes its revenue and what it's spending. And in my finance role, it's been really great because I've been able to get a lot closer to that. You need to understand how the money flows. The second thing that you need to understand is you have to be deeply in touch with your customers and what they are asking for or demanding and what the value proposition is for them. I've been spending a lot of time kind of thinking about and talking about, for example, the experience economy. And in higher education, I mean, that's truly an experience, whether it's a 4-year degree or you're coming in from, maybe a short conference or seminar type of experience. You really want that experience to be seamless. And today, how that experience is seamless is highly enabled by technology. So, I've got to understand, what the customer demands and expects and how UNH can differentiate itself through its experience. So, you take the money, understanding the customer experience. Also I think it's about, you have to really be deeply engaged with your business partners. I mean, for example, I spend a lot of time with our folks in athletics and in dining, in addition to, obviously, my academic colleagues, because those two experiences are really key differentiators in terms of our undergraduate residential experience. So, you've really got to have kind of that 360-degree, or sometimes what I call the 460-degree view of what's going around you in your organization to really be effective as a CIO. And the CIO needs to be bringing opportunities to the table just as much as any of the business leaders.
There was just an IDG publication, I think it was today or yesterday, titled, say goodbye to CIO, say hello to Chief Customer Officer.
Ah.
And the theme was, understanding the business, understanding customer user experience, how to work across the lines of business to ensure, again, customers at the center of all the decisions. It sounds like that, being CIO plus, as you mentioned, understand what business success looks like, understand how to delight your customers, and more importantly, collaborate with your peers in the other lines of business to ensure that there's a consistent alignment to the, in this case, university culture, and making sure you're enabling optimal opportunity for students and faculty to learn and grow.
Absolutely. And a CIO who really wants to contribute, and whether they're called CIO or CTO or whatever the, that middle letter is in between the C and the O, if you don't have that full understanding, particularly of the customer experience and how the financials work, I think that you're not going to be contributing to the level that you could be.
Doesn't this also mean that the entire IT organization needs to relate to the customer in a different way? I mean, right now, we know that IT budgets are relatively flat, and I'm interested in your comment about what's happening at University of New Hampshire regarding that. But technology across the enterprise is growing, and that means that the lines of business and various departments are trying to take technology into their own hands. So what's happening to your technology budget, and how do you relate to this whole trend, and what does this mean for the people inside your organization, your IT organization, for example?
Well, I think, if you're going to be a CIO plus, you've got to have an IT organization plus. I'm very fortunate to have a great team who's very connected, with our customers. For example, I believe I talked about this perhaps in one of my blogs. We use the UNH Information Technology portfolio as a living laboratory for our students. We actually do about 10 to 12 projects a year with students in our computer science department, where they come and work with my team. And that's such a great experience that, both ways. The students get, amazing real life experience in production environments that they can, translate onto their resume and their education experience. And my team gets to spend that time with their students and really get that in-depth understanding of what's important to them, and how they kind of how they operate in their daily lives. And so I'm always looking for opportunities like that where my team can engage in very meaningful ways. I mean, obviously, talking to people, being out and about, you have to do that. But engaging in meaningful ways like that make a huge difference. So that's very important. That as a CIO, you are creating opportunities for your team to kind of come out of the cubicle, if you will, and have those meaningful experiences, directly with the customer. I mean, we're very fortunate. We can see and hear our customers, our residential customers anyway, right there. So we certainly strive to take a lot of advantage of that. And on the budget question, part of that question, Michael, certainly from an operational, like an OpEx perspective, we strive to keep our budget flat or even slightly down, each year, taking advantage of cloud and other things like that. However, from an investment perspective, we actually, IT investments at the university, and in fact at the university system, are now classified the same way as overall capital investments. Like brick and mortar is traditionally very, a very high level of investment for higher education institutions. We always need, the new science building, the new recreation center, whatever the case may be. And IT has now risen to the level of those type of investments where they are discussed and decided upon at the very highest levels, even up to our board of trustees. And that's really enabled us to increase our capital investment. And we're actually about to embark on a number of new projects in the next year or so that we're really hoping is going to get us to the next plateau of both operations and the customer experience.
Joanna, you recently wrote in a blog titled "Innovation is the New Operation," and
yes.
In that blog you had an interesting comment. You're saying being open to innovation may mean being a tad systematic, but don't obsess on the process. And more and more technology is growing outside of the IT organization, and we've had recently CIOs on our show, and they've talked about shadow IT. And interestingly enough, and maybe a bit counterintuitive, most of the CIOs we've had have said that they're comfortable with shadow IT because in some way it gives them an opportunity to understand why are the lines of business going outside of IT to get services that they should be getting by collaborating with IT. So it's an opportunity for the CIOs to better understand and identify potentially areas of improvement within their own, as you said, IT organization plus. What are your views in terms of shadow IT, and do you agree with some of our other CIO guests that shadow IT is a good thing, but at the same time it's an opportunity for IT organizations to better understand how they can bolster their service capabilities?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with shadow IT. For me, there needs to be some alignment. I mean, and there's some practical reasons for that. So we've been working a lot over the last few years. There are various shadow IT groups at the university, and my team has been working very hard to have a stronger relationship with them, whether it's in our research computing, which actually is a separate small IT group, or directly in some of our academic departments. And there's a couple of reasons why that's really important to me. The first is very practical, is if these folks are deploying technology, they're deploying things like servers or they're deploying VPNs, from just a security perspective, it's important that they're doing it in such a way that's practical and isn't going to have a negative effect on our production environment. So there's that practical side of it. But the more interesting part of it, I think, speaks to your point, is these people do tend to be closer to either the internal customer or our actual customers, and there's a tremendous amount to be learned from them. And so we've actually aligned them with our organization such that all the way from the mundane things like change control and letting us know about projects that they may have going on, and vice versa, all the way up to the innovative, where we'll go to them and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, what do you think? And they're like, oh, well, in my department, we're going to have to think about this. You're going to have to engage in this way. And then on the innovation side, they often think of things that we might not necessarily think of. The way I look at it is the more bright minds, the better. And just because these resources aren't within my direct control, I think that them being aligned with our department makes the whole IT function, can make the whole IT function stronger. Embrace them, align with them, make friends with them, and it should be good.
Have you been able to convert or transition some of the innovation or IT services that are outside of the traditional IT org and bring them in-house by collaborating more and proving to them that you have faster, more secure, more advanced servers, applications, and so on and so forth?
Sure, absolutely. So in our mobile area, actually the two departments that were innovative in that space was our dining organization and athletics. And so they sort of popped up first, and over time we now have a singular UNH mobile app. And so they're absolutely still able to innovate and get what they need there, but we have a more kind of a comprehensive UNH mobile application, which is better for our customers, right? Because they can go to one place and get what they need. So that's one. So that's one great example. In our research area, we have our own research data center at the university, which of course is very important because of our strong research operation. And we've actually been able to learn things from them in terms of better data center environmental controls. They actually built an application that they called Sheepdog that was about kind of HVAC sort of management associated with the data center, and we were able to leverage some of that into our production data center, and it actually even helped with OpEx because we're now sharing things between the two data centers. We have some redundancy between the two. So those are really two primary examples that I would use.
Excellent.
Joanna, we have a question from Twitter, and it's funny, I was just about to ask this exact thing, which is, what are you doing with the cloud at the University of New Hampshire?
So the cloud is, another way of deploying technology, right? So one of the things that we're doing with the cloud is in our academic technology space, our faculty more and more often are using, digital media, particularly video, in order to deliver the educational product. And it may be in terms of complete online classrooms, or it may be, materials or things they're doing within the more traditional classroom setting. All that video and digital media is stored in the cloud. Because when this first started to come up, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure that, having a boatload of storage and all that, in the data center is a great idea. I think we can do it more effectively and with better resiliency if we're doing that out in the cloud. So that's one example. Increasing amount of our systems, particularly new systems, we try to default to cloud-based solutions. And I'm using cloud sort of loosely, Michael. I mean, it might be software as a service. It might be something within one of the large cloud providers. I think that I have to tell you, there is a tough hurdle here, and that is on our legacy applications, moving legacy applications into the cloud to get those benefits of effectiveness and efficiency. That I think is going to be a long haul for us.
So how do you? So you say that you're increasingly defaulting to the cloud when it's possible. Yep.
Absolutely.
I was going to say. So what does that imply for your relationships with the legacy vendors? It's funny to call them legacy vendors. Let's say on-premise vendors.
I think it's fine because most of them have cloud solutions, and what I say to them, so they'll come and talk to me about their offerings in that space, and I'll say, look, I get it, and I know that it's probably not a matter of if we do this, it's probably a matter of when. But what you need to help me as a CIO understand is what is the pathway for me and for my organization and for the university to get from where we are today to the benefits that you get as part of a cloud solution, particularly that resiliency and some savings on the OpEx. Because, and I think what I get down to with them is you don't really need to sell me that it's a good idea probably to move to the cloud. What you need to sell me on is that that pathway and that journey. And if I want to be doing this, let's say in 4 years, what do I need to be doing this year? What do I need to be doing next year? What do I need to be talking to my business partners about, and how do I need to be engaging them in this conversation? Lay that out for me. And once I can get the vendor to that place of being more a partner in the journey as opposed to just selling me a cloud product, then the conversation starts to be more positive and more productive.
So the message is CIOs are looking for business partners, not just vendors.
Absolutely. A vendor is really just a name for the person that's the other person on the contract that you're signing. It has to be really a partnership. And I think the great thing about higher education in the technology space, because science, technology, engineering, and math, there's such demand for that. We have a lot of opportunities to partner with vendors in really meaningful ways, whether that's having the vendor work with, or I should say work with our faculty, maybe on something in the curriculum, or maybe the partner, maybe we have educational offerings that would be of use to the partner in terms of developing their employees. And so there's a lot of great ways in higher education that we can really effectively partner.
So we've talked about one mega trend, that being the cloud in IT and business. Another one is certainly mobility. And you're a CIO of the largest university in the state of New Hampshire, and that with 15,000 some odd students and faculty and administration, you have arguably the most connected mobile customers in the world. Mm-hmm. Today, an average student in higher ed has, I believe, 4 IP-connected devices with their laptops and smartphones and tablets and either a gaming device or e-readers. And wait till you've got the Google Glass and the Apple iWatch and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So talk to us about your BYOD, bring your own device initiatives, and what benefits, and I know in a university, the CIOs there and the institutions are perhaps far more ahead than other businesses, but some enterprise struggle with BYOD, and so what advice do you have, and share some of the benefits and implementation best practices with our audience?
Yeah, so one of the advantages is we had, Vala, as you know, is that in higher ed it's always sort of been BYOD, right? So kind of as soon as they were PCs or mobile devices, that was a reality for us, and we had to deal with it. So when, even before BYOD was called that, so when, that kind of became formalized as, an innovation and a reality for IT organizations, we at least had the advantage of already having to contend with it. So a couple things I would say. First of all, as it relates, the demands on the network are on a hockey stick trajectory. I mean, the demands have always been, trending upwards. Now they're trending even more sharply upwards, both because of the number of devices, the number of applications that are on those devices, and the increasing use of rich media, particularly video, on those applications. So, it's sort of a triple threat in terms of managing your network. So we have to be very cognizant of making sure that we have a pretty aggressive strategy in terms of our bandwidth, both on wireless and connected. It's funny, our highest bandwidth times are like from 10 to 2 in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, which you might expect, but also between like 1 and 3 in the morning in our residence halls, because that's when a lot of our customers are up and gaming and doing their homework and what have you. So that creates some interesting challenges. Security, obviously. I mean, we have to be caught. We have a kind of a guest access, and then we have to kind of segregate our student and some of our faculty access relative to the applications they're using, and then we have our enterprise VPN So I think for us with BYOD, we've had to be conscious of, there's some things we really need to sort of wall off and have separate access for. And you have to, as these new applications are coming online, we have to think very carefully about where they fit in the BYOD space. But again, I think the biggest thing for me is keeping up with that massive demand on the network day after day.
So the three elements then that are the big challenges regarding BYOD are security, bandwidth, and network availability.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. When the network has a hiccup, that's not a good day for me.
Yeah, especially when it's during that active time between 1 and 3 in the morning, I'm sure.
Yeah. Luckily, we have some great automation, and I have great people, so we swing into action no matter what time of day or night it is. The other thing I would say is that, and I think this is true of a lot of organizations, is that we have a lot of very dense events, and our campus is very spread out. We have all the way from horse barns on kind of one end, all the way to residence halls and bleeding into the downtown Durham area on the other end. And there's dense events happening all the time, all over the campus. And we're getting more and more into thinking, how can we use our mobile apps and our increasingly strong Wi-Fi to improve the experiences related with those events. And BYOD factors into that as well, because you really have no clue what people are going to bring to these things,
right,
and how they're going to want to interact.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Mary Meeker 2013 Internet Trends report that she just talked about at the D11 conference, and just the twice the volume. The volume of photo sharing has doubled since 2011. I think alluded to 500 million photos, and just the massive growth of mobility. It seems like smart devices are now your remote control for life. And I can imagine with students on campus, it's BYOD it's not even a technology discussion, it's a lifestyle discussion. So I don't see how CIOs in the enterprise outside of universities can think about avoiding this mega trend. It's almost like fighting gravity.
And you said, Joanna, that you yourself are seeing this hockey stick kind of growth. That's the term you used.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can trend it, and I can actually point it back to when the iPad came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if memory serves, it was at around a holiday, and when people came back, they brought a lot of those devices with them, and all of a sudden the network started to go that. And I think it was that, and it was also when the mobile apps really started to explode. We started to see a tremendous difference at that point as well. I mean, I believe if I have my facts straight, I believe if we're not there already, we soon will be. With got about 7 billion people on the planet, and I think we now have about 7 billion mobile devices. If we're not there, we're close. Correct?
That's right. We've passed. We've passed that threshold. In fact, in the Mary Meeker report, she talked about tablets. In less than 3 years, the unit volume of tablets have surpassed laptops and notebooks. So it's amazing. It's absolutely. I think it's the fastest technology adoption of any technology has been. The tablet since introduction less than 3 years ago. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I would say when I started at UNH and you'd go into a meeting, people would be there. They'd either have a laptop or maybe they would just have some paper. Now you go into a meeting and probably 75% of the people in the room have a tablet, and not too many people are carrying their laptops around with them.
And every one of them demands immediate and quality access from you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was in a meeting today in Concord, and well, actually, I was waiting for my meeting to start, and there was another meeting going on in the room, and we were waiting for those folks to finish. But some of them had seen me come in, so they knew I was there. And one of the guys got up, stuck his head out the door, and was like, "Joanna, I can't connect." So, so I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So yeah, I mean, it's really that's yeah, that's an interesting thing about being a CIO. You know, what tablet should I buy? I can't connect. You know, you're always trying to help people with those little things to make
Chief
their day
Help
go
Desk
easier.
Officer.
You're the person
I
that
am Chief
points.
Help Desk Officer, absolutely.
Now that's CIO plus.
That is CIO plus. You know, one of my first jobs actually was running a technology support organization, and I got to tell you, I'm really glad that I have that in my experience because I have a real appreciation for what it takes to run a good IT help desk. So that's good.
That's excellent.
So Joanna, let's talk about social media.
Oh yeah.
You blog and you use Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a very busy woman. Why is it that, as a CIO, you do these things?
Well, why I do those things has changed. I have to tell you over time. When I first did it, you know, I got to admit, it was kind of new and it was cool, and you know, I was kind of enjoying, you know, just connecting with people, and it was fun. And my view has really, I think, changed and hopefully matured since I've been doing it for a while. And for me, Michael and Vala, it has become about accelerating the speed of connecting with people and organizations. I learn about things from, for example, my primary partners, such as Interisys. I will learn about things through Twitter faster, really, than any other medium. And so I find that I'm able to really, my contribution can increase because I'm able to either learn things or connect with people much faster than I did before. And I'm really able to translate that into, you know, correlating it back to, you know, my contribution. For example, I met someone at an event last week. You know, we connected on Twitter, and now there's like 3 or 4 things we're talking about, you know, doing and collaborating on. And, you know, and then through that person, I've connected with a couple of other people, and it really just starts to explode. And I've had people say to me, oh my gosh, how do you do this? And, you know, email and you know, LinkedIn and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I don't look at it as an additional thing. I really look at it as something that helps me kind of accelerate, you know, accelerate things. And actually, I'm spending less time kind of flailing around in email. You know, where did I put that person's contact information? I don't have to worry about that. I can just kind of say, oh yeah, that's their handle. I'll just direct message them and go from there.
So it's beautiful. There's no filter. You know, I love the fact that I'm connected to executives such as yourself, and in a normal channel, Michael and I and others would have to speak to your administrator and speak to the, you know, the press and analyst relations person, versus, like you said, UNHCIO, you know, I have a question, or what do you think of this? And it's instantaneous connection. It's amazing. To me, it's brilliant.
I mean, for me, you know, when I need to get something done, especially if it's in a rush, I just send a direct message because it just bypasses everything.
You know, yeah, you're absolutely
all the filters.
Right. Yeah, it's just so much faster.
Is there one social network that you use more than the others for either accelerating connections or learning about industry news, technology, and vendors and partners and so on and so forth?
I mean, Twitter is definitely the primary one. I use Vala, though I have been kind of focused recently on better aligning kind of my Twitter and my LinkedIn presence, and doing a little bit more on LinkedIn actually. But Twitter definitely. I don't know if it's the way I work or whatever, but that just really took off for me. Once I got that connection between Twitter being able to accelerate my contribution, you know, I became a lot more active.
Great. Now, you have responsibilities, as we talked about. You have some chief financial officer responsibilities. You have your technology CIO hat, which is, in your case, is more than information. It's innovation, imagination, integration, intelligence, all that amazing work that you do. As you evaluate partners, and we talked about partners, not vendors, how often do you work with startups versus, for example, established public organizations, because again, that balance of financial responsibility, which, you know, the reliability of the company and the longevity, I'm sure comes into play. Do you have, in terms of your procurement process and partnerships, startups that you work with, and maybe you can name a few if that's the case?
So I would say mainly at UNH, the main place where I work with startups is in our research and commercialization space.
Yeah.
I work a lot with our head of commercialization, a guy called Mark Saddam, and you know, his job really is to kind of connect, in particular, you know, the intellectual property of our research faculty, you know, to the business community, and try to make a match there. And so I do get involved in that, and New Hampshire is really starting to have kind of a really nice buzz around kind of startups and innovation. So I spend time there. In terms of the IT systems that we actually have at the university, that we have in production, we're not using a lot of startups yet. You know, we have a lot of legacy stuff in that space. And so really most of the vendors I talk to tend to be the larger vendors.
Yeah.
But I have been talking to Mark Saddam about how we can translate some of the startups into our production. It's kind of tough in a large organization to get startups into production. You know, sometimes there's scale issues. You know, sometimes you can maybe be a little bit concerned about the risk. I will give you one great example, though. There was a startup in the e-procurement space. They're called Unimarket, and we actually did end up buying them and using them as our e-procurement solution.
Great.
And it's been really interesting because it's been such a great partnership where they've almost been using us as their test case in terms of, you know, how to do e-procurement, particularly in the higher ed space, and that's been kind of you know, a neat journey. You know, on the pro side, you know, we get a ton of their attention. They're really innovative. You know, they turn around stuff really fast, and that's been great. On the side that maybe is a little more challenging is, I think, is the scale piece. You know, sometimes startups can have, you know, they're still trying to nail it and scale it, if you will. So, but in this instance with e-procurement, it's actually worked out pretty well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And it's funny, the information technology department, my business service center that handles all the vendor stuff, actually we piloted it because I like to, you know, eat my own dog food before I roll it out to my customers. Yeah.
Great. That's excellent.
So on that subject of partners, what advice do you have for vendors that want to sell into the University of New Hampshire, sell technology?
The advice I would have, first of all, is don't call my office or send me email, because they just kind of get lost in the plethora of stuff that comes in that way. The best way I would encourage is, you know, if the CIO or another kind of key person at the university is active in social media, whether that's, you know, Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever the case may be, look at what they're tweeting about. Look at what they're posting and talking about out there. Look at who they're connected and following, because that's probably, I mean, I'm following all my major partners, right? I mean, I'm following Enterasys and Blackboard and Ellucian and all those folks. And so that's going to give you a really good picture right there of what is that person interested in, what are their existing relationships, and then, you know, engage with, I mean, and if that key person, the CIO, let's say, is really active in that space, that should be sending that vendor a signal. Find a way to engage them in their social media network, in that sphere, and find a way to, you know, connect and start chatting and talking and finding some common areas of interest. And I think at that point, if they're doing their job right and they're really understanding what's important to that CIO and what their challenges are, they're going to be able to find a way to talk about how they can bring value. If you're just kind of cold calling me or sending me an email, and let's face it, I get a lot of kind of cookie cutter things. I can tell that it's cookie cutter. I can tell they probably haven't maybe taken a good look at what I'm talking about, what I'm interested in. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit of a turnoff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, social media is out there. It's pretty much, free to use. It just takes, time and work. Vendors who, whether they're startups or large vendors, if you're really interested in an organization such as the University of New Hampshire, go to where people are connecting, and you should be able to figure out a way to connect positively.
It's amazing that here we are, and it doesn't surprise me at all because you were named as one of the most social CIOs in the world in a Huffington Post piece, and here you are talking about if you want to connect with me rather than phone or email, do your homework by connecting to the social network that I'm a part of. Read my blogs, look at my tweets, understand my vision, challenges, and aspirations as a CIO of a large institution, and then perhaps you've earned a right to be able to pitch your product or solution to me. I think that's unbelievably useful advice because so many CIOs are not social, so many vendors are not leveraging the platform to really better understand the institutions that they're targeting and prospecting. So I hope the folks that are listening into this show really hear your advice and think about the next time they pick up the phone and try to leave a message saying, I'm curious to know your pain points. Here's my name and number. Call me back, because I know as an executive at Enterasys, that does nothing for me. So
yeah. If you want to understand then it's going to take them so much more time to go through that traditional process. In probably 15 minutes, they can find out really a ton about me and about UNH just by checking out social media.
And I have to echo that. As somebody who writes about this stuff, I also get pitched constantly by technology companies, and a lot of times they're PR agents. And the cookie cutter ones tend to be annoying, and you ignore them. Yeah. And the ones where you respond are the people who have engaged with you in some way, and at the very least know exactly what you're interested in so that they can touch your particular focus or pain points right out of the box.
Yeah, and I think in fairness it's a two-way street. I think as a CIO or other sort of chief officer, I think anybody who's not participating in social media, they really need to think hard about why they're not doing that, because it's going to make your life easier if you're participating out there, rather than struggling through that process of trying to sift through what vendors you want to talk to or not talk to. It needs to be a conscious decision. So I think people are sometimes not making a conscious decision about whether to participate or not.
Breaking down the barriers to communication.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it is a conversation, as you said. I wanted to share with you, recently we surveyed hundreds of contacts in the higher ed space, specifically targeting this massive open online courses innovation that appears to be highly disruptive in education. And we had, again, hundreds of folks respond, and I wanted to share some of the stats with you. In the survey, and this was a global survey, 84% of the schools said that MOOCs complement residential education. 90% of the schools offer online courses today or plan to in the next 3 years. Only 44% of the schools are planning to offer MOOC credits, and finally, 67% believe that MOOCs will never replace traditional or residential classes, but 5% thought that it could, but it would take 5 years. So it's definitely on the radar of higher ed institutions, and some at Coursera and Udacity and edX are actively recruiting and delivering to millions of students as we speak. What are your thoughts about massive open online courses, and how disruptive do you think it is in education?
So how I think about massively open online courses, MOOCs, is that it's another channel of delivering education, and it can be a very effective channel. MOOC has become kind of this, buzzword. There is a lot of energy around it, both positive and sometimes maybe not so positive. How I try to encourage UNH to think about it is that what it really is about delivering your educational product using technology in an effective way. It's a different model of delivery. And whether you're doing MOOCs, which are really kind of like the open source, if you will, way of delivering it, or you're delivering online and you've monetized that in some way, again, I get back to who are your customers, how do they want to receive the product, and how are you going to fit that into your business model. So I would say that first. I firmly believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that more and more educational product across the board, I mean, all the way into K through 12, all the way up through higher education, and even as people kind of have educational experiences throughout their life, either to develop personally and professionally, more and more of that is already online, and that is only going to increase. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a real life example. I had a contractor doing some work on my house. He was putting in a new deck for us, and he had to figure out a way to do this certain part of the deck that he had never done before. He went out and watched a YouTube video. And he used the YouTube video to figure out he wanted to curve this one part of the deck. And that's how he did it. And I came home that day. I was like, wow, look, it looks great. And I'm like, we were asking him, how he did it, and he was like, oh yeah, I looked it up on YouTube, and that's how I learned how to do it. And now he has potentially another customer who saw our deck, who he's going to do that for. So here's this guy that's kind of great guy, blue collar guy. He's using YouTube to figure out how to do new things in construction. I love it. I love it. So more and more it's going to be part of people's lives. They're just going to expect to have offerings that are delivered that way. And the technology enables it. I mean, UNH is very fortunate to have an incredible amount of bandwidth. We have our own higher education and research network in New Hampshire, so we have plenty of bandwidth to deliver our product, which is nice. But I often say to people, it's not a matter of if you're going to do it this way, it's a matter of how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and you have to really think carefully about how you're going to monetize it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can monetize, MOOCs or whatever you're doing online. Are you going to charge for it in a traditional kind of tuition and fees sort of way? Are you maybe going to use MOOCs as sort of maybe a bit of a loss leader to kind of bring people to you and get you interested in your other products? Are you going to advertise on your MOOCs? And I mean, because you have to be able to fund it some way, right? I mean, it's and I think where I've seen some organizations run into trouble is that they haven't thought about the business model enough. And so I've been working a lot with the academic leaders and my team and my other finance colleagues in terms of thinking about how we do that sensibly at UNH. I mean, we recently launched an online MBA. We have several of other professional master's courses coming up. One of the coolest things we've done recently is this thing we call a MOOC, a massively open course for kids. One of our professors, Professor Krasner, in our College of Liberal Arts, is an expert on Harry Potter, and he's doing a massively open online course for kids this summer on Harry Potter. We're like so excited about it. It's
that's so awesome. We've got our own Hogwarts division up in New Hampshire. That's awesome.
yeah. So check it out. I think it's going to be very cool.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and just, you are awesome. Can I just say that? I'm just going to say it. So I've got so much blog material out of this 40 minutes. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Oh, great.
On that awesome
Thanks,
note,
Vala.
You're welcome.
this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this has been such a fabulous way to end my week. I'm so thankful that you invited me on. It's been really great.
Our pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. You have been watching CXO-Talk, and I'm Michael Krigsman with Vala Afshar. Vala?
Sir, another fantastic show. Thank you, Joanna. You're great.
And we've been talking with Joanna Young, who is the CIO at the University of New Hampshire. Thank you so much for listening, and everybody, we will be here next week at the same time and the same place.